What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of the season, No Huddle Necessary. I am new host Dominic Shirosky, taking over for Jeff Barnes this season. Super excited, super thankful for the opportunity, and I cannot wait to be here with you every week throughout the rest of the season. I hope you guys enjoy what we bring to you. As always, we're going to be bringing you the best football topics, debates, everything from our writers at the Nuts and Bolts Sports, as well as guests of the show, things like that. You guys know what we do here, so we're just going to go ahead and get right into it, bring in a couple of the guys that we got here today. Got the great Monty Perez in the house with us today.
Thank you for calling me great. I haven't been called great in a long time, so I appreciate that.
You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it, Monty. Glad you're here. Glad you're here. And of course, we have Mr. Windy City himself, Dan Goodwin, joining the show. How you doing, Dan?
I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
I like the Bears hat.
Thank you very much, sir.
It's really nice. Still waiting for Bill to hop in. We'll see here. And also, Keith was going to be on the show. Had some personal issues. He dropped out. So Keith will be all set. He is scheduled to be here next week. So if you want to see his face and hopefully maybe he'll have the baby there. You know, the baby's been a pretty big fan request on the show whenever Keith's on, but he'll be with us next week. But I guess first things first, how are you guys doing?
Doing great, man. I don't like the fact that the NFL started the preseason and then we got to wait 2 weeks after. The fans are geared, the fans are hyped, and now they're like, okay, now you got to wait. I don't like that at all. I never complain when it comes to the NFL with scheduling. Even Thursday night game, no one likes. People still watch. So the fact that we got to wait 2 weeks after the last preseason game, that's the one mistake the NFL has made.
I agree with that. It's boring, man. It's non-necessary, right? We don't need it. If we didn't need the preseason game, let's just get to the season. It's time. It's time to get rolling.
Absolutely.
But I'm happy to be here, man. I'm doing good. We got some things that's perturbing to me. But other than that, I'm okay. I'm okay.
We'll get to that. I know which topic you're talking about. We'll get to that soon here. Because I believe you and I feel a little similar to it. But speaking of those topics, I guess we can go ahead and jump right into it. Let's go ahead and get into this first quarter. Alrighty, so obviously there is a bunch of things, and we'll talk about some more in greater detail here in a second. But right now, I just kind of want your big picture overall view. Preseason's over, like you all mentioned. We're about 8 days out from the start of the season. What was your biggest takeaway from the preseason this year? Monty, let's start with you.
Well, first and foremost, one of the things that you're starting to see a pattern with is that Sean McVay started this a few years ago with not playing starters in the regular season. And everyone criticized them, but that year they started the season 8-0, so it didn't affect them. What we're seeing now in the preseason is that starters aren't playing. They're playing in practice, they're playing maybe a series, and that has affected the injury. I remember a few years ago, so many players got injured. Okay, right now it's basically Cam Akers, obviously, the running back from the Ravens, Dobbins got injured, and Irv Smith just got injured. So those are the only three that I could think of. So maybe Sean McVay has started a trend here with not playing the starters. So that's one takeaway. Another takeaway I have, and people may not think this is a big deal, but when you talk about coaches and real good coaches, we could talk to Dan about the problems he has with Matt Nagy. I could talk about Adam Gase, who used to be with the Jets. But John Harbaugh has won 20 straight preseason games. Now, I know preseason doesn't matter, but that was a record that has stood since Vince Lombardi. And what does this say about the Ravens? It doesn't say that he plays his starters all the time, because he really didn't. Dobbins only played 23 snaps in preseason, so that's not why he got hurt. But what this means is everyone on the Ravens staff, from the coaches to the players, are all tuned in. They're all on the same page. So many times you see the third stringers, fourth stringers come in for teams They give up a 30-yard touchdown play. The quarterback throws it. There's no receiver there because he's supposed to cut in. He cuts out. John Harbaugh teams have really, really, really played well. They've won 20 straight games in preseason. And finally, my biggest takeaway from this is look, there's been a lot of controversy in Denver regarding their starting quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater is going to start over Drew Lock, and I don't mind that decision. But where are the Denver Broncos as an organization when they feel that a game manager is going to beat my boy right over there, Justin Herbert, or Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City? And let's be honest, whether it's Marcus Mariota or Derek Carr, that defense in Las Vegas is terrible, but they can put up points. So the Denver Broncos coaching staff believes that they can win games 17-13 or 20-17 with Teddy Bridgewater, who's a game manager in a division where Patrick Mahomes and the Chargers and the Raiders are going to put up 24 points even against elite defenses. So I don't understand the mindset here. You need a gunslinger to beat a gunslinger. Yes, defenses can slow teams down, but it didn't work for the AFC East when Tom Brady was there. Yeah, they'd win a few games here and slow them down. But what is Denver doing picking a game manager going up against those prolific offenses in the AFC West?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I was very shocked when Teddy Bridgewater got the job just because we know what Teddy is. We're still trying to see if Drew Lock can be something. But I also kind of feel like Denver might just be biding their time because they really feel comfortable with the fact that they might get Aaron Rodgers next year. So we'll see what happens there.
If they're tanking, they're tanking. But Aaron Rodgers there would be a great addition.
Exactly. Dan, how about you? What's your biggest takeaway from the preseason?
Well, I got two takeaways. The first takeaway is that teams are not really concerned about these preseason games, and I think you'll see going forward more and more teams will be utilizing the format where they scrimmage during the week instead of playing preseason games and really putting effort into the preseason games. Pretty much it's a dog and pony show. It's just there for the fans to be there and something to be hyped about for a couple of weeks leading up to the regular season. But you'll see a lot more teams doing that. I think Chicago did it with Miami a couple times during this preseason. They were they battled for the whole week and then leading up to their preseason game. You see teams do it from time to time. But even if you look at the facilities that teams are starting to build, they're building facilities that are large enough to carry two teams there, right? To have practices for two teams on those fields. Like in Hallis Hall in Chicago, that's what they've built. They built, and it's plenty of room. You could almost have three teams there if you wanted to practicing. So I think you'll see teams even give less focus on preseason games moving forward, and you'll just see third stringers and fourth stringers pretty much playing. That's what we saw this year. Matter of fact, in Chicago, for the most part, Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, many of our wide receivers didn't even play. The guys that actually made the team at our wide receiver position didn't even play. David Montgomery didn't play. And that's what you'll see going forward. Teams will focus on aspects of their game that they think that they need to focus on. Our offensive line, they put people out there. Our cornerback situations, they put people out there. And you'll see teams really focus on that in the preseason and try to get a glimpse of who they are as a team going forward. And then you'll see less and less stars playing in these preseason games, trying to reduce the injuries, of course. I had a second take, and that second take was that with everything that goes on in the preseason, you see some of these teams, and you focus on positional battles, right? Positional battles that stand out to people and stand out to different teams or whatever the case may be. And I use Chicago for an example because I'm close to them and I follow them really closely. But you look at the positional battles of Chicago's players. You're not going to have a situation where you have wide receivers and they're focused on just one particular aspect of the game, catching the ball. We have an example, like I'll give you an example. Rodney Adams, everyone thought he was going to make the team in Chicago. Everybody thought he was going to make the team. He had an awesome preseason. He had a nice, rapport with Justin Fields and Andy Dalton. Caught several touchdown passes. Acrobatic catches off of helmets and all kinds of things like that. Everybody thought he was going to make the team. He ended up being cut. He got signed back to the practice squad. But the reason he was cut is because you can't put him into a situation where he plays on special teams. So some of these guys that are bubble players, when they really focus on, trying to make the team, these third stringers, these fourth stringers, if you're not seeing them on special teams and they're not participating on special teams, you might as well understand that they're going to be cut. And a lot of people get, fans and things like that for several different teams. Like, why did this guy get cut? Why did he get cut? He showed out in preseason. Yeah, but you have guys ahead of him that are much better. He'll never see the field. And if he can't contribute on special teams, there's no reason for him to be there. So they'll stash him on a practice squad and then pull him in later on. And that's what I've seen. That's what I take away from the preseason right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of actually former players talk about that, like with guys that are on the bubble, that willingness to go out there and make an impact on special teams. I think so, because you got to think a lot of these guys that get drafted, even if they go undrafted, like they've never been a backup anywhere, right? Like a lot of these guys come into the league and for the majority of their lifetime, everyone's been telling them, hey, you're the best at what you do. And then you get to the NFL and maybe you're the fifth best, maybe. And so now it's a bit of that ego that comes into it. And also, like I said, it's just that willingness. Like, how bad do you want it? Especially if you are one of those bubble players. So yeah, I think all of that stuff is great for just, going over what happened in the preseason. But now, and Dan, I think you're going to be really excited to talk about
Dan's
this.
chomping at the bit.
Yeah, Dan's ready for this next topic. So we're just going to go ahead and jump into the second quarter here. Alrighty, so obviously there were a lot of quarterback competitions this preseason, and at this point, they've all been answered. Obviously, Dan, one of the highly contested and I think pretty interesting ones was the one that was in Chicago between Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. So I want to ask you, Dan, you go ahead and start us off.
Wait, is this a PG rated show? Because I'm afraid Dan's going to let the expletives fly.
He might let a couple fly. Let's try and keep it at the very least PG-13.
All right.
But
Understandable.
is Matt Nagy making a mistake starting Andy Dalton over Justin Fields? The floor is yours, Dan.
Absolutely. I think he is definitely making a mistake. And you worded it. You said there was a lot of competitions going on. That's the problem, and that's the frustration that a lot of Bears fans have, several media people have, many people that follow the team, podcasters, whatever the case may be. Everybody has this issue. You talk about a competition, but this was never an open competition. He decided to have Andy Dalton be the starter. He didn't want to start Justin Fields. He sandbagged Justin Fields throughout the preseason. And it's evident in the games. You take, for example, last week's game, Justin Fields, until that last drive of the first half, he had played the entire first half. The Bears ran 14 plays. They were outrun on plays 14-33. Not only that, but when he was in the game, he only threw 6 passes. He threw 6 passes through that first, they got the ball back at 1 minute and 50 seconds. And they were able to drive down and score. So up until that point, he had thrown 6 passes in the first half. There is no explanation for that, especially when you look at the second half and you see what Nagy and his game plan was with Nick Foles. He allowed Nick Foles to throw the ball. He instilled a ton of different plays where you had wide receivers doing different things. When Justin Fields was on the field, he ran a button hook. Everybody ran a button hook at 5 yards. And turn around and catch the ball. That was the offense when Justin Fields was there. That's what's frustrating to everybody because you sandbag this guy. Clearly, he's better than Andy Dalton. There's no question that he is better. He's more dynamic. His arm is more electric. He can run with the ball. He can make plays. And I always talk about plays that are made. There are going to be 3 or 4 plays in the course of a game that really dictate almost the outcome of that game. Justin Fields is able to improvise and make those plays, winning plays. He's able to do those things. That's something Andy Dalton has never been able to do. We've seen Andy Dalton for 10, 11 years in Cincinnati. He's never won a playoff game. He's 1 touchdown to 6 interceptions in playoffs. We know what he is. He is a backup quarterback. We passed on him last year. He didn't come to Chicago, right? He signed with Dallas as a backup quarterback, and then he came to Chicago this year because we were in panic mode at the time. Now, I give Nagy and I give Pace credit for what they did in drafting Justin Fields and some of the other draft picks that we were able to get and solidify, which was great. But at this point in time, I wonder, how do you walk into the locker room with guys who have been putting in work on the defensive side of the ball for years and years and years, holding teams to 17 points per game in 2018, holding teams to 18 points per game in 2019, even last year holding teams to below that, even 15 points per game, all the way through what game 10 or 11 last year until they gave up, basically. So how do you go in there and say, hey, Khalil Mack, I know you're 30 years old. Hey, Akeem Hicks, I know this is your last year in Chicago, but we're going to start Andy Dalton, even though he's not the better player. Hey, Allen Robinson, we know you're in a contract year. We know you're frustrated with that, but we're going to put the guy out here who has a weaker arm, who cannot get you the ball in the positions that you need to be effective and be successful. How do you explain that to those guys? That's my attitude with it.
Now, do it with me. Woosah. Monty, the Bears.
Dan was way too nice. I'm not going to be that nice.
Go ahead,
Let me
Monty.
break it down for everyone there.
Go ahead.
Justin Fields, 30 of 49, 276 yards, 3 touchdowns, 96 passer rating, 92 yards rushing, 1 touchdown. Here's the deal, guys. Okay, what are you telling your fan base in Chicago? We're going to have someone, Andy Dalton, who best case scenario wins us 9 games, who doesn't have a strong arm in a windy stadium in Chicago. What are we telling our fan base here? And for all the talking heads out there on Twitter, on social media, on radio stations who are saying, you know what, Aaron Rodgers was a backup, Tom Brady was a backup. Guys, that's 20 years ago, okay? How does starting right away work for Justin Herbert? How does it work for Kyler Murray in Arizona? How did it work for Josh Allen? And for these people who say, oh, you can't play because you're going up against the Rams and they're a great defense. In what area of life, whether it's a job, a sport, in what area does anyone who gets babied and coddled grow? Tom Brady threw 3 interceptions in the NFC Championship game last year. It didn't affect him because on 3rd down at the end of the game where they needed a pass and they needed a 1st down, he threw it, he completed it. Let Justin Fields make mistakes. Let him grow on the job. They didn't baby Josh Allen. They didn't baby Kyler Murray. They didn't baby Justin Herbert. The time for guys sitting on the bench like a Tom Brady, like a Phillip Rivers, like a Aaron Rodgers is long gone. Long gone. What are you telling your fan base? You have the 29th worst offensive line in football rated by Pro Football Focus. So even if Pro Football Focus is wrong and they're 24th or 23rd, do you want a quarterback who's undersized and not that fast and Andy Dalton? Justin Fields can make plays with his arm and with his legs. Here's the problem with Matt Nagy, and I'm tired of it, and I don't even live in Chicago. He's playing not to lose instead of playing to win. Grow some balls and start the better quarterback. Told you I wasn't going to be nice.
I agree.
Listen. I 1,000. Listen, you're talking about a Bears franchise that is the only franchise, and mind you, the Bears have been around for forever. The only franchise in NFL history that doesn't have a passer to have a 4,000-yard season. The
I mean,
only franchise.
The problem here, Andy Dalton is going to get creamed in his first game. It's going to make Bears fans wish they had Jay Cutler back. That's how bad it's going to be.
The problem with it, and I've said it before, I believe Matt Nagy is afraid. And the reason he's afraid is because everybody knows he's scapegoated coaches, he's scapegoated players, he's scapegoated everybody in that organization throughout the several years that we've been down. The 2 years that we have 8-8 records, he's scapegoated everybody. There is nobody else to scapegoat. But you have all the speed that you need at wide receiver now. You have 2 huge tight ends, and then you have a nice backup in Jesse James. And then you also have a 1,000-yard running back who you don't give the ball to, who you become unbalanced in your play calling. So he realizes that if he doesn't make the decisions when it comes to play calling, if he doesn't get his offensive play calling down, and I mean, there's 3 different aspects of it. Play calling, there's also the situation with the time clock and clock management, and then there's also situational football that he's terrible at. If he doesn't get that together and he puts a dynamic quarterback in there and he's able to go and he's able to do his thing and he can't flourish, it's all on Matt Nagy. He knows that, so he's sandbagging it and buying time so that he can say, hey, the first 3 or 4 games we didn't have Justin Fields in there. Then we got him in there. Now we're going. We're good.
But here's the deal.
I don't want to hear it. His time clock he's on the clock now.
We've seen in Seattle how a mobile quarterback can make an offensive line respectable because Russell Wilson keeps winning. We've seen Kyler Murray. They have a good offensive line this year, but in past their offensive line was terrible and he makes plays. Justin Fields can make plays. So Matt Nagy, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Why? And what are you saying to the locker room? Nothing has changed in 3 years. If you could go, I think he went 26-12 or 26-13 with Mitchell Trubisky. You're telling me you can't go 30-10 with Justin Fields?
It's crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. And I've been saying this for quite some time because I keep hearing, Matt Nagy talk about, Aaron Rodgers sat and stuff like that. Yes. But to quote one of my favorite quotes, situations are situational. And you need to understand.
20 years ago, no quarterback is sitting anymore.
Exactly. You need to understand this is not a Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith situation. This is a Matt Flynn and Russell Wilson situation.
100%.
That's exactly what this is.
And that's his problem. He walks around with this play card that says BU on it, but he's trying to clone Kansas City. And he's been trying to clone Kansas City for 4 years now, and it's not working.
Listen, they were in trouble when they took Mitchell Trubisky out of North Carolina when Deshaun Watson was in the same conference, the ACC. I could see if Mitchell Trubisky was out west and you were focusing on him, but if you just watch North Carolina play Clemson and you think Mitchell Trubisky is a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson, you're on crack.
Absolutely.
And with that, we're going to go ahead into halftime real quick. Quick little commercial break. We'll get right back to you guys. Third quarter coming up. But let's go ahead and do our halftime here.
The Team Nuts and Bolts Sports Store is officially open. Log on to www.teamnbsmerch.com and get your t-shirts, hoodies, polos, all sizes available. Once again, log on to teamnbsmerch.com. Get yours today.
All right, and we are back.
I'm still dancing to that music for the
Monty.
Show.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys check him out there on Sundays. Sundays at 11 a.m., correct?
That is correct.
All righty. Make sure you guys check out Monty.
You should know because I asked you to come on and you're always like, I'm working.
Listen, man. I got to pay bills somehow. But I absolutely would love.
Actually, Dan is going to be on Sunday.
I saw. Cannot wait. Make sure you guys check out that.
Looking forward to it.
And just going through some of the comments here, Monty with the heat, absolutely grilling Matt Nagy as he absolutely should. This show is fun. I think so too. It's a pretty nice show. I think I'm doing a decent job so far. Not to pat myself on the back.
Very good job.
But like I said, it's time for us to go ahead, get into the third quarter here. And Monty, you kind of called this one. So let's go ahead and get right into it, though. Alrighty. So originally, this question was who should be the starter in New England. I'll give you guys a little bit of the behind the scenes. Originally, this question was who should be the starter. Should it be this guy or this guy? And well, our answer came in, and so we had to do a little bit on the fly here. Cam Newton obviously was released by the New England Patriots, and Mac Jones is the starter. Monty, I'm going to throw it to you first because you kind of called this on your show not too long ago, so I'll give you some bonus points this round for giving your best Nostradamus impersonation. But first and foremost, is this the right move? And is this Cam's last chance at being a starter?
Well, like you said, on the Full Monty show on Sunday, I called this. I said it's a direct quote. I started each show with the good, the bad, and the ugly was Cam Newton. And I basically said that, Cam Newton didn't understand the protocols because of COVID. And we've seen this a couple of times from Cam not understanding what's going on. You know who always understands what goes on? Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, leaders, winners, who there's no off the field issues. The only off the field issue we have with Tom Brady is during COVID, he was practicing illegally, right? I mean, Cam Newton, for everything that he was, I said on my show, I said, if I'm the New England Patriots, I walk away from Cam Newton immediately. Forget about the off the field issues. Forget about the fact that he's not someone who loves film. You go from Tom Brady, who lives, breathes, and dies watching film, to Cam Newton, who looks at this job like a 9 to 5. There are a lot of people who don't understand this, okay? There are plenty of football players who just believe that this is their job. They don't love it, but they know it's a way to make millions of dollars. I think Cam Newton loves the fame. I think Cam Newton loves to be talked about, but I don't think Cam Newton loves the preparation of the game. This is absolutely the right move. And forget about everything else. Forget about the fact that the off the season issues. Forget about the fact that he's been injured. Let's look at Cam Newton's record over the past few years. 6-8, 11-5, 6-8, 0-2, 7-8. He's 30-31. 30-31 in his last 61 games. I said this on my show. It's worth repeating. People look at Cam Newton, and Dom's going to get pissed off about this, like they look at Derrick Rose, a once bigger than life star who got injured, who came back, and he's not the same player anymore. Cam Newton has basically unvaccinated himself out of the NFL. He's not going to get picked up by anyone because it's just a distraction, and he's not vaccinated. That's it. That's it. Cam Newton had this job, and he blew it because this was the final straw in New England. I've listened to prepare for this show and my show. I listened to Boston radio for the last couple of days, and all they said is this was the last straw. Cam would have been the starter, and they would have went to Mac Jones halfway through the season, or if Cam struggled. But the fact that Cam Newton can't fall in line, listen, I say this all the time. If you can't succeed under Bill Belichick or Andy Reid, you can't succeed in the NFL. It's done. I said it on my show. Walk away from him, and they did.
Dan, how do you feel?
Well, I mean, it's Monty, you got some good points there. I'm going to disagree and agree a little bit with you, right? I agree that for the most part, the reason why Cam Newton has been released from New England is because of the vaccination situation, right? I think the misunderstanding of the protocols and things like that, it's egregious. That's all on him. That's his fault. Nobody else's fault. You can't blame anybody else. You can't say you didn't understand the rules and this, that, and the third. They're simple. Don't leave. If you leave and you fly to Atlanta to go see a doctor, there's going to be a 5-day protocol, quarantine process that you have to go through. That's what it was. So when you do that, Bill Belichick is not having that. I mean, he wants everybody locked in. Everybody needs to be locked in on the same page. And then you also bring up the situation. I brought it up before as we were talking about it on my podcast. At the same time, a couple weeks ago, he mentioned something about loyalty, right? Now, true enough, he said that was directed at mother of his kids and things like that. But this is the situation with Cam Newton. This is his problem. I don't think it's that Cam Newton is terrible or he's sorry or he lost it or anything like that. But when you're 32 years old, nobody's building the game around you. Now you need to fit in, right? So when you have situations like that where you're, outspoken on social media and you have this weird dynamic with your, family members or whatever the case may be, and I'm not, casting any aspersions on his personal life. That's not my business. I don't do that. But at the same time, it's a headache that some teams view it as something that they don't need. We don't need to deal with this. This guy's 32 years old. They'll deal with it when you're 25. They'll deal with that type of behavior when you're 24 years old and you have this untapped potential. But now you're 32 years old. Now you're creeping up there in age and you're getting towards the back end of your career. How much higher is your ceiling, right? I don't think he's terrible. I think he's better than Mac Jones. I'll be honest with you, but it's more trouble than you're worth at this point. And I'm not saying he's trouble. He's a troublesome person because he's never been in any terrible situations or any trouble, suspensions or anything like that. So I'm not saying that. But at the same time, people like Bill Belichick, other coaches, many teams, probably all 30 teams in the NFL are not looking at you like, well, should we bring him in? Should we bring him in? And then if you bring him in as a backup, I mean, it's Cam Newton. You know what I mean? So if there's any falter by the starting quarterback, fans are going to be clamoring for Cam Newton to come into the game because he is that type of personality. So when you're that type of personality, you've been a starter for so long, man, it's just, you have to now fit in. And he doesn't understand that. He hasn't figured out how to do that. And so, with the situation with New England, I believe that's why he was cut. You look at his stats and you brought up, his wins and losses, but I'm not gonna put that all on his shoulders. There was a lot of things going on in Carolina. They lost a lot of players. I mean, Cam Newton, think about what Cam Newton was given in Carolina. For a long time, he had nobody except Greg Olsen, and he was able to do what he did. He went to the Super Bowl. He was an MVP of this league. So let's not forget, even 2 years ago, the year that they went, what was it? They had a bad record. I think it was 6-8 or whatever the case may be. He still scored. I think he threw 24 touchdowns and a few interceptions as well. I don't have it right in front of me. I apologize. But what I'm saying is that his numbers weren't terrible. His numbers weren't that bad or that skewed. Now, he only played 2 games the following year, and then he went to New England. He played 8 games. He got COVID, had situations like that. So I don't think his talent is that depreciated. Of course, it's gone down some. He can't run like he used to. He probably can't take the hits that he used to because he was used as a battering ram for many years in Ron Rivera's offense in Carolina. And I think they misused him and put that man's body through a little bit too much just because he was 6'5", 260 pounds.
Dom, can I just add something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I agree with what you're saying, the fact that he's 32, but let's be honest here. His career completion percentage is under 60%. You look at Tom Brady. The Tampa Bay Bucks did everything for him. And he's way older than Cam Newton. The Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers is going to leave next year. 30 teams are going to want Aaron Rodgers. Drew Brees. So it has nothing to do with his age. It has to do with his productivity. It's the same thing with the Ray Rice situation a few years ago. Ray Rice, if he could still play, would be on someone's team, even though he knocked that girl unconscious and dragged her out like a caveman. Okay, because in the NFL, Greg Hardy, who threw his fiance at the time on a bed of semi-automatic weapons. In the NFL, if you could play, they overlook a lot of the stuff. It has nothing to do with Cam's age. It has to do with his productivity.
Okay, and I'm saying that it does not have as much to do with his productivity as you're saying. It has some to do with the productivity. When your productivity dissipates a little bit, they're not going to put up with the antics. They're not going to put up with what they figure there are antics. 24-13, that was the season that I'm talking about. Touchdown to interception. The year before that, 22-16, 19-14, 35-10. His numbers aren't terrible. His numbers are serviceable. Now, if you want to talk about the completion percentage, Cam's never been super accurate.
Right,
there are not a ton of quarterbacks that complete 70% of their passes.
No, but
there's only 3 or 4.
We've seen in the NFL over the last 5 or 6 years, you got to be over 62, 63. The elite passers, the Aaron Rodgers, the Drew Brees, the Tom Brady's, 66% and above. All I'm saying is that Cam Newton's productivity is nowhere near. He's Derrick Rose. He could still do it once in a while, but he's not consistent. Sorry, Dom.
No, you're good. Monty, I was going to let it slide the first time, but you mentioned it again. So now those bonus points that you got for this round for predicting it, yeah, you can cut them away. But we have Bill here now. Super happy to have you in the show. Bill, we're going to give you an opportunity to catch up here, but we are going to ask you this first question. Obviously, we're talking about Cam Newton in New England. One, is this the right decision? And is this Cam's last chance at being a starter?
It's not Cam's last chance of being a starter. It's Cam's last chance of being treated like a superstar. And those are two different things. I would like to remind you that Ryan Fitzpatrick is a starter in the NFL. So there is opportunities for Cam to still be a starter. The thing that you have to remember about Cam Newton, and somebody made mention of how he was used, he can still run like he used to. He should not run like he used to. These are once again, two different things. He still has a lot of physical ability, but the time for using it the way he used to has passed. The human body is not meant or built to have high-speed collisions against other large human beings who are accelerating towards you at the same time. That's not how anyone's body, as big and strong as Cam is, nobody is built for that. So one, he needs to, and he was learning slowly but surely to change the way he played. Will he ever become a pinpoint passer? No. No one becomes dramatically more accurate 8, 9, 10 years into their NFL playing career. But he was making changes. He was learning things that he, frankly, had not been taught earlier. I'm not trying to indict the coaches that he had before, but they weren't the knee plus ultra of coaching the quarterback position where he was before. Let's just be clear and honest about that. No offense to Kenny Dorsey or any of the other quarterback coaches he's had in the past. They were simply, solid NFL coaches, but they weren't great at it. And so he used his natural ability, and they built around that. Finally, at this point in his career, it's almost like the Randall Cunningham story to some extent. Randall Cunningham, they literally told Randall Cunningham, hey, if it's open, throw it. If not, run. Right? Literally, he was told that by his coaching staff in the first part of his career with Philadelphia. And then later, he gets to Dennis Green, right, the late, great Denny Green, and gets completely remolded. Now, he had better natural accuracy than Cam. But still, look at his completion percentage numbers in Philadelphia, and look at what he did with the Vikings. It's a dramatic difference. Do they have a better offense? Yes. Do they have better offensive talent? Also, yes. So there's situations where Cam could be a good, even very good starter. He'll never be accurate enough to be great, right? He can still be effective. And like I said, look around the NFL. There's 32 guys starting in the NFL, and some of them are NFL starters, but some of them aren't, but they're still starting.
All right, Bill. And like I said, we're going to give you a quick chance to catch up on some of the topics that you missed. So From one quarterback competition to another that we just got done talking about, is Matt Nagy making a mistake in holding back Justin Fields and starting Andy Dalton?
It comes down to how do you like to play poker? Now, do you like to play poker in a sort of safe kind of way, a controlled kind of way where you're minimizing losses? Or do you like to go all in? I now have a feeling of what kind of poker player Matt Nagy is, right? I don't think he likes to go all in. I think he likes to hold back some of his chips. I think he likes to fold when he doesn't like his hand. And so his plan, I mean, I haven't talked to the man, but I have a feeling of what the plan is. His plan is to let Andy Dalton go out and perhaps be amazing and absorb a beating also, quite frankly, in some of those matchups against really tough defenses. Why would you send a young quarterback out to place the Rams, right? Let him go out there, and if he's great, keep going. But at some point, probably around bye week, I'm just saying, especially if he's not setting the world on fire, except with the color of his hair, at some point, he's going to, do what they do in baseball, right? Or I guess it's this arm, really. But at some point, he's going to point, right? And say, okay, time to do this, right? He's going to make that move at some point. Now, he's looking for the right moment. He's looking for a moment where the team, quote unquote, needs a spark. And in fact, somebody write this down or record it or whatever. Watch to see if he doesn't use that exact phrase. I felt like the team needed a spark, right? Ding, 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 ding. So at some point he will make that move. But yes, for his mindset, for what he likes, he wants to play it safe. He's going to send out the guy who has a better grasp of all the adjustments in the offense and checks and all that stuff. And he's going to let him, once again, Andy Dalton might be great. It's unlikely, but just in case.
Okay. And one more. So obviously, season's coming up, regular season, we're about 8 days away. Preseason, just pretty much in general, what was your biggest takeaway from the preseason?
Two things. One is we all were watching this quarterback class. I watched all of the quarterbacks. I watched every snap of all of the rookie quarterbacks more than once because I'm a sicko. And things that I noticed right away. I'll start with Justin Fields. We just talked about him. He is the type of quarterback we talked about Cam Newton, but he's got a lot of the same components, but natural accuracy. He is making throws to all parts of the field and putting them on the right part of the body of the receiver. He's putting it away from the leverage of the defender. He shows touch. He shows arm strength. He's going to be a very, very, very good NFL quarterback for a long time. Zach Wilson showed some nice things in places. I would say, of all of them, the quote-unquote, everyone uses the term pro-ready. Well, we weren't surprised. Mac Jones looked like a guy who'd been playing NFL for a while, even when he was still in college. He's not going to blow you away with physical ability, but then neither did Joe Montana. One of my favorite Joe Montana quotes is, I don't throw darts at balloons. I throw balloons at darts. You don't have to be a freak athlete or have a super strong arm to be a great NFL quarterback. And Mac Jones is in a great situation. So he has a chance to have a really impressive year. But I think he'll be in an offense that doesn't let him really open it up too much. I mean, obviously, he'll throw the ball around some, but don't be surprised if they have a middle of the field, slot receiver, tight end, throwing to the running back space kind of offense where occasionally he'll go down the field. And last but not least, I have to talk about Trey Lance. He's the opposite of what we talked about with a guy like Mac Jones. He has all the physical ability in the world, but he's struggling with some parts, even against very simplified defenses, right? He's struggling with some parts of it. I still think that he'll get some snaps this season, but he will not unless Garoppolo gets hurt, which, of course, is always a 50-50 proposition. But unless Garoppolo gets hurt, I think Garoppolo has the job for this year. But Trey Lance is a super exciting, intoxicating talent. And I'll end with the first guy. I mean, first isn't first off the board. Obviously, to the surprise of no one, the first player taken, shocker, Trevor Lawrence, actually is going to be the starter this year. But he's going to have some good days and some bad days. His offensive line is not ideal. They don't have a great running game. The receiving group around him is, they're solid, but not spectacular. But he's going to go out there, and he's a good enough athlete. He, once again, is a guy that has a very high football IQ. He's got leadership. He's got all the things you want. But there's going to be some bad days. That team is not going to be great, and he's going to lose more games probably in the first half of the season than he has in the last 6 or 7 years of his life. So we'll find out what kind of character he has. He's going to be sorely tested.
I absolutely agree with you on Trevor Lawrence there. I'm also not a believer in Urban Meyer as a head coach in the NFL. And I think
But don't worry, Dom, he won't be there long.
Yeah, hopefully.
What you mean you didn't like him bringing in Tim Tebow?
I did actually. But that's because I have a soft spot for Tim Tebow.
Can I just add one thing to what Bill said? Bill, I get what you're saying and the spark, but you know this from following sports, and we talked about this earlier. Matt Nagy, there's nothing worse than a coach that plays not to lose instead of a coach that plays to win. By Matt Nagy picking Andy Dalton, he's playing not to lose.
Well, I just told you what kind of poker player is. If you ever play poker against him, watch. He will fold every time he doesn't love his hand. I promise you.
All righty. Well, go ahead. It's that time of the show. Throw up your fours because we're heading into the fourth quarter. Alrighty, so for this last question, our last topic, fourth quarter, obviously the NFL came out and they were pretty strict on their COVID protocols. They went through, they laid it out. This is what's going to happen. The NFLPA signed off on it, agreed to it. We've seen guys like Cole Beasley has been pretty vocal about his disdain for it. He's missed time for it. We've seen also, I believe, Isaiah McKenzie. Buffalo Bills was fined for it. Cam Newton possibly, maybe played a part in him losing his job because he was gone 5 days, and it basically gave New England basically an entire week to watch Mac with the ones. Exactly. So my question, and I'll start off with Dan here. Has the NFL been fair, too harsh, or too lenient with how they've dealt with COVID protocols this year? Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I think they've been fair. Anytime two entities or two parties come to the table and they sign off on a deal, and things have to happen because that deal was put in place, it's fair. It's fair. You can't go back on that either or. So if they did something that was out of the realm of their power, then yeah, it would be unfair. But I think they've done everything fairly. I don't think it's been too harsh. I don't think it's too lenient. I think there's a real serious situation with COVID, right? And there's some guys that that don't care about it, or they do care about it and they have their feelings about it. But those are the parameters. That's what both parties signed off for. So you can't cry over it if it's signed off on it. You get the situation, and I understand where some of the players are coming from because it seems like they're being pitted against one another. And that's pretty much what the NFL wanted to do, right? We know that to be the case. I mean, they wanted to pit, that's happened down throughout years, centuries, peer pressure, and everybody gets in trouble. I used to get in trouble when I was a kid, and I got a brother and a sister. They did something wrong. If somebody lied about it, everybody got in trouble, and it was on us to hold each other accountable. And that's basically what they want the NFL players to do. Are they going to do that? No, because NFL players, at the end of the day, they don't really get involved in each other's personal lives too much, and they're not outspoken about each other's personal lives. Now, behind closed doors, maybe they do. In the locker room, hey, if game checks are going to be involved and forfeiting of games are going to be involved, and you're in a playoff run, then yeah, you're probably going to see some guys going back and forth in the locker room. Hopefully they keep it in-house. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's been too harsh. I don't think it's been too lenient. I think it's been fair. And the main reason that it's fair is because both parties signed off on it.
All right, Monty, how you feel?
Well, we saw in the NBA what LeBron James did and what the Lakers did in the bubble. Now, it's a lot easier to control an environment when you have 12 to 15 players and a handful of coaches. Let's be honest. The NFL roster with coaches, trainers, you're looking at over 60 people. But here's what I know, okay? You're entitled to your opinion. For example, I think LeBron James is the most complete player I've ever seen in my life. People will say Michael Jordan. They're entitled to their opinion. What you're not entitled to is your own set of facts. And here are the facts. 90% of all the people in the hospital right now sick with COVID are unvaccinated. It's not that big of a deal to wear a mask. I had a woman come into my job the other day and I said, "Ma'am, you need to put a mask on." She said, "Masks don't save your life." I said, "No, they don't. But either does a seatbelt and we still wear it." Wear a mask, follow the protocols. If you don't like it, the NFL is each team is privately owned. If you don't like it, quit. If you cannot follow the rules of the NFL, give up your $10 million a year salary and go work at Best Buy. Go be a speaker. 90% of the people who are sick in the hospital, this is fact, are people who are not vaccinated. So if you don't want to get the vaccine, I don't care. Wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, I don't care about Cole Beasley. He's healthy. He's probably not going to die. But what about the trainer? What about the older coaches? What about the people who give him food at the training facility? What about those people? NFL players, for the most part, don't have pre-existing conditions, but we've seen COVID wreak havoc on people who do have pre-existing conditions. So stop being a little baby, Cole Beasley, and put on a damn mask. And if you don't like it, get out of the NFL. There's plenty of other things for you to do, like be a rodeo clown.
I like it. Bill.
So when someone asks something fair, I start with this question. When someone says, is someone overpaid? I said, is someone paying it to them? A person's worth what you pay them. Is something fair? Was it agreed to? Did both parties agree to it? Anything that's agreed to by both parties is inherently fair. So the first question, since you have a collective bargaining agreement in the NFL, is almost a moot point. It's been agreed to inherently. Ergo proctor hoc, it must be fair for those fans of the Latin language. So the next thing that I would say as to the question about, what do we do about players who are quote unquote pushing back? And the last I checked, there's exactly one medical doctor who plays in the NFL, and that's Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. The rest of them aren't doctors. So I'm not shocked at all. They're like people, like all other people. There are going to be some people who will believe conspiracy theories. There'll be some people who will be frightened of this or scared by that. That doesn't surprise me. But there's an opportunity right now for the NFL to make it clear that we're going to make a united front, right? They can do that. They're good at that. Even when it's not true, they're good at appearing united. We know that football teams, effective football teams that win, have an ability, even if it's fake, to unite, right? We're only finding out later that half the Seahawks, hated each other from those Super Bowl teams. But at the time, when they were winning together, they all managed to at least appear to be united. The NFL simply needs to close ranks and at least appear to be united. And yes, they should use every means within their disposal for those that are not willing to close ranks. They should make it hard on them. And not because, they're trying to, make an example of them, but simply because it's good for business. It's good if you're available to play, it's good for the team, right? If you're not getting sick or you're not in a protocol and unavailable, it's good for the team. Supposedly, football players who are good teammates want to do what's good for the team.
And I think with that being said, we're kind of all in agreement here that this is fair and this is what you signed up for. Your NFLPA signed off on it. And if you don't like it, there's the door.
Not just that, Dom. How about this? I've been around college football teams. A lot of my friends coached. How many? There's no one filling up the emergency room who got sick from the vaccine on mass scale. How many players, and you know this, Bill, have shot up steroids that we don't know the long-term effects? How many players get a shot because their hamstring is a little sore and they inject something? or they take some sort of speed. So let's
Sure.
stop the hypocrisy with, I don't know what's going into my body. You'll
right.
do anything to play on Sunday, and you're listening to some conspiracy theorists who want you to drink bleach if you get COVID. Let's stop the
You've
insanity.
been putting Toradol for
Exactly.
9 weeks a year into your body for 6 years. You're
Exactly.
not that much of a health purist.
No,
Thank you.
Stop
no.
pretending.
You can't
Right.
you can't be that much of a health purist, right?
Right.
It just sounds good. That's all it is. It
Oh,
sounds
and can I
good.
say one more thing?
Something that they can just blurt
Can I
out
say
there
one
and
more
say.
thing? They asked Dak Prescott if he was vaccinated. Who Dak Prescott is the Texas is a hotbed like here in Florida, and
Yep.
Dak Prescott sounded so stupid. He said that's a HIPAA violation. No, it isn't. A HIPAA violation is if the doctor reveals the information. You could
Right.
reveal anything you want about yourself, and not one reporter had the balls to say it's not a HIPAA violation.
Right.
It's true. Absolutely.
Alrighty. Well, looks like we are through all 4 quarters. And before we announce the winner, good stuff, guys, from Jeff. That's all the confirmation I needed to know. Jeff, if you're telling me I did a good job, hey, I think I did pretty good today. So thanks, Jeff. But we play this for what? To win the game, as Coach Herm once said.
Oh no, a Jets flashback for me.
It's,
So
it's an Eagles flashback for me when he and John Outlaw were the cornerback tandem.
Yes.
But as Herm said, you played to win the game. So now it's time. And Bill, I'm really happy that you jumped in because it gives me the opportunity to really have fun and like send people to the back and stuff like that. I know that was Jeff's favorite part of the show. But now it's time to announce the winner. So let's go ahead. So, in the words of Jeff, former host of this show, you may not be first, you may go out first, but it doesn't mean that you were last, it just means you weren't first. So, for today, our first person that we're going to be sending to the back, even though he was a little bit tardy, did have a very strong showing, put up a good fight. But Bill, we're going to go ahead, send you to the back. Again, like they said, can Bill make a great comeback? Put up a great fight, came in, had some great points, made it close. But we're going to go ahead and send Bill to the back. And now, Monty or Dan, Mr. Perez or Mr. Windy City, both of you guys really great. You guys, again, will both be on Monty's show this Sunday at 11 a.m. Make sure you
No
check
hard
it out.
feelings, Dan. Win or lose. I'll see you Sunday.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, if I take a loss to you, I'm good with it.
And so, with that being said, today's winner of the very first episode of No Huddle Necessary this season is Monty. Dan, we're going to go ahead and send you to the back. Monty, FaceTime is all yours. Enjoy it.
Dom, I want to thank you. You're doing a great job. Jeff was a great host. I put out in the little comment room, I said, I think Bill only comes on shows where he has the best hairstyle because obviously he was with me and Jeff on Sunday. He's with us today. But I just want to talk a little bit about the New York Mets, my team. I have the MLB package. They've been an absolute disgrace this year. Forget about the undisciplined play. Forget about Noah Syndergaard being out, Jacob deGrom, Francisco Lindor, who they signed for $350 million. Javier Baez, who they just got from the Cubs, came out and said this week that the fans shouldn't boo him. We deserve better. We're trying. We work hard. First of all, and what planet are you on? You played in Chicago, and now you're in New York. The Mets team has the worst batting average in the league. I have the MLB package. I watched the game. Every one of the Mets hitters starts off the count 1 and 2. They never take pitches. They can walk the bases loaded. The first guy comes up and he's swinging. They are the most undisciplined. They are the worst coach. And here's the worst problem. They needed 3 or 4 pieces to fill at the trading deadline. The Dodgers, who won the World Series, they got Trey Turner. They got Max Scherzer. The San Francisco Giants, who have the best record in baseball, got Chris Bryant. And what happens yesterday? Zach Scott, the Mets general manager, gets a DUI after he leaves an event with Mets players, Mets brass. He gets a DUI. How the hell do you get a DUI when every sport has a number you call during the season? If you drank too much, a car service will pick you up, no questions asked. They have that in the NFL, the NHL, Major League Baseball, and the NFL. I don't know what the hell's going on with the Mets, but you're in the city with the New York Yankees, and every year you suck. And you want us fans to keep supporting this crap? If I am obsessed with competition on my show. I want numbers. I want the best guests. I look at people who are successful every day and I listen to them, not to copy, just so I can compete with them. And the Mets refuse to compete with the New York Yankees. The Mets refuse, they accept being less. And as fans, you're going to sit there and tell me game in and game out, man on second and third, no outs, and you don't sacrifice, you don't get a sacrifice fly, you don't bunt. The Mets are the worst coached team I've ever seen, and I'm so tired of it because for 20 years we've lived in my whole life we've lived in the shadow of the New York Yankees, and they don't care. They don't care. Javier Baez is saying, "Stop booing us. Stop booing us. We're trying." What is this, Ricky Bobby? If you ain't first, you're last. What the hell is going on with the New York Mets? I'm tired of it. Yes, I'm angry. I'm pissed off because I spent money on the Major League package so I could watch them, and now I'm watching other teams because I hate the Mets. And Javier Baez, way to alienate yourself from the New York fan base. I'm speechless at how incompetent they can be every year.
You don't like his thumbs down to the fans when he hit the home run?
What are you doing, dude? What are you doing? Like, talk about not having, like, he played for you in Chicago. He's used to unruly fans. And listen, I got to be honest with you. The Mets fans travel. I watch the games on the road, and they're there. What are you doing? Your team sucks. What are you wasting your time for?
I think.
Am I a bandwagon fan when I don't want to watch a crappy product night in and night out?
The saddest thing about all of that is knowing that you paid for the MLB package to watch the Mets. That's the saddest part.
That's a phrase you don't hear all that often, actually.
Right.
Just thinking about it, that's a swift kick to the nuts.
Listen, I'm in Florida. What do you want me to watch? Marlins games where Don Mattingly and Derek Jeter can continue to develop players so they can send them to the New York Yankees?
Yeah, the old term my father used to say is it's a 4A franchise, one step above 3A, right? You're developing teams for players for other teams. Yes.
By the way, I'm very happy I won, but I think Bill should have won just because he threw in a little Latin term there. How many times do you get that?
And he pronounced the player's name right too.
Yes,
yes.
I told you.
The offensive lineman from the Kansas City Chiefs. So Bill,
he made a hell of a comeback. I told you guys.
You're a winner.
He made a hell of a comeback. He made it close. But I want to thank you all so much for being on. You all made my first episode extremely easy. You guys are all incredible guests. Dan, where can the people get at you? I know you've got your own podcast that you host as well.
Well, you can reach me at Dan Goodwin III on Twitter. You can Three Kings of the Midway podcast at 3Kings_Midway podcast, where you do a podcast about the Chicago Bears. It releases every single week. We just had an episode released last week as well. Shout out to my two co-hosts, Ill Will and Devori Nesby. And then, of course, shout out to Dominic, man. You did a very good job on your first episode. I hope I can come back at some point, and then just being a part of this show right here with Monty and with Bill, I consider these guys heavy hitters. So does that make me a heavy hitter too? I hope so.
Hell yeah, that's why I have you on my show Sunday.
I appreciate it.
All righty, Dan. All righty, Bill.
Well, occasionally you can find me on Monty's show. I have an extremely long article that might turn into a series of articles that's dropping on Around the Block, sports, and on the history of blacks in professional wrestling in the period prior to television really taking off. So it's really from the 1950s on back. people you may or may not have heard of, like Sailor Art Thomas, Ross Samara, the original Reginald or Regis Sickey, a bunch of guys that I guess if you're old enough. Ethel Johnson for the ladies, some of the other great ladies wrestlers of the 40s and 50s who were African American. And some of them were born overseas as well, but were black. Also, I have my Sunday Superlatives, which is looking back at Saturday, so it's college football Superlatives. That'll start dropping on my YouTube channel, which will also probably be showing up on the Zitty62 media feed. I have my HBCU weekend review stuff will show up also on maybe Nuts and Bolts. I don't know. It depends on how long it is. If it's short, I'll give it to Nuts and Bolts. If it gets too long, I'll give it to Around the Block. I also will be doing some content for NFL Draft Bible as well about HBCU football. And you can find me at, if you're a young man like Dominic Churosky, you can check out my New Jack Twitter feed, which is at BC. That's capital B, capital C, ARROLL 138. I feel Carol 138. 2 Twitter feeds, no waiting. And the other one is the old school one for guys like Monty. That's at 11 Bravo. That's ELEVEN BRAVO. 11 Bravo. That's the word, not the letter, not the number. Sorry. 11 Bravo 138 on Twitter. As always, it's an honor and a privilege to compete with these gentlemen, to speak to these gentlemen. And once again, Dominic Churosky. Clearly, the chair is just right the size for you. Forget what Jeopardy's trying to do to find a host. We nailed it.
Well, I thank you, Bill. I thank you. Like I said, it's always enjoy having you on the show. Look forward to everything else that you're doing. And we'll see you. Monty, you got your show coming up this Sunday. Where can the people follow you?
Well, first I compared Jeff to Brett Favre. A great run. And now you're like Aaron Rodgers. Is someone better or worse? No. You're just making a smooth transition. We're not taking a step back. So you did a tremendous job. Thank you for having me. Very excited about what's happening right now. Just posted every Monday. I'm going to be posting 5 things we learned about college football. I dropped the article on Monday. And then tomorrow, Friday, I will be dropping my, the NFC East preview. 3 years ago, I got 7 out of 8 division right. Then I was 6-8. So I have 2 more articles to come up there. And you can watch my show every Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. It's sports, it's comedy. And starting week 1 of the NFL season, we're going to have a chef come on and give us a tailgating recipe. They're going to tell us how to cook it. They're going to show us the finished product. So it's sports, it's comedy, and it's also cooking. And on Monday nights, Brad Ward is going to be my co-host along with A. Marie. They've been on my show numerous times. They're going to be my co-host for the Monday night recap. It'll be 7 o'clock every Monday, and we will have a special guest on co-host. Ashmere from Nuts and Bolts Sports will join us in week 1, 7 o'clock. So you have the preview show on Sunday at 11 a.m. And on Monday, 7 p.m., we have the Sunday recap.
All righty. Well, first things first, Monty, congrats on the win. Very first episode of the season. Hopefully we'll see if you can get a couple more.
It's funny because I won last year's first one too. Jeff had me on, and so 2 years in a row, I've been the first winner. So I can only go down from here.
Exactly.
Too early.
Right. You see, you set the bar. You set the bar exactly. Set the bar too high.
I peaked too early. I'm done.
Well, thank you, Monty. Thank you, Monty, for being on the show. Thank you to everyone. And that's a wrap for the very first episode of No Huddle Necessary. I thank you all for being on the show. Thank you all for watching. Like I said, I really enjoyed doing this. Can't wait to be here with you guys every single week for the rest of the season. And make sure you guys check us out next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. sharp. Thanks. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.